Today, we're diving into the hidden intelligence of plants. You're listening to Singularity Minus One. Welcome to the episode that'll make you terrified of your salad. Now imagine you're walking through a park, totally minding your own business, when it hits you. Every single blade of grass under your shoes is spying on its neighbors. The oak tree just decided to cut funding to one of its own branches because it's underperforming. And the little weed growing out of the crack in the sidewalk is currently running a risk analysis algorithm more sophisticated than most day traders. None of them have a brain, not one neuron between the lot of them. And yet, right now, they are sensing, calculating, predicting, learning, remembering, bluffing, cooperating, and occasionally straight up sabotaging the plant next door. Some of them can literally count. Others send airborne messages that are basically the plant version of incoming caterpillars. Get the poison ready. A few have been caught anticipating tomorrow's drought before the sky even looks cloudy. For the last century, we called that automatic. Turns out the word we should have been using is intelligent. And once you see how deep this goes, how roots behave like tiny distributed brains, how single cells pull off decision-making stunts that would make a chess grandmaster jealous, how entire forests play decades-long games of cooperation and betrayal, one question stops sounding crazy and starts sounding inevitable. If something can do all of this without a single neuron, are we absolutely sure none of it feels like anything? Buckle up. We're about to meet the smartest, motionless organisms on the planet. And by the end of this ride, your salad is going to look a lot more interesting. You're listening to Singularity Minus One. If you're enjoying these random facts, subscribe and follow us on YouTube and Spotify, drop a like, leave a comment, share it with a friend. It means the world. Quick note, we do our absolute best to be factually correct, but if we ever slip up, call us out in the comments so we can fix it. Thanks for being here. Now back to the facts. The hidden intelligence of plants. A deep dive that will change how you look at every leaf and root forever. Chapter 1. The day the scientific community finally had to take plants seriously. Imagine this. You're strolling through a forest, sunlight dappling the leaves like scattered gold coins, and everything feels alive in that quiet, humming way. Birds chirp, wind whispers through branches, but the real action. It's underground in the soil, where roots are plotting like underground spies, and above ground, leaves are eavesdropping on the wind's gossip. You've always known plants grow, photosynthesize, maybe even feel sunlight in some vague way. But what if I told you they're not just reacting? They are deciding, learning, outsmarting threats, and maybe, just maybe, experiencing the world in ways that make your morning coffee ritual look like amateur hour. For decades, the scientific world treated plants like the wallflowers of biology. Animals, oh, they're the stars, brains buzzing with neurons, emotions, choices. Plants, mere automatons, slaves to sunlight and soil chemistry, programmed by DNA like wind-up toys in a garden. Poke a leaf, it folds. Shine a light, it bends. Simple stimulus response, end of story. But then, cracks started appearing in that tidy narrative. Experiments piled up, wild observations from the field echoed lab quirks, and suddenly the dam broke. The community, those stuffy botanists and cognitive scientists who'd spent careers dismissing plant intelligence as hippie fluff, had to face it. Plants aren't dumb. They're playing a long, intricate game we barely understand. You won't believe this, but it started small, almost accidental. Researchers watching pea vines in a greenhouse noticed something odd. These climbers, twisting toward supports like they're drunk on sunlight, didn't just grab the first thing in reach. No, they tested. They'd curl tentative tendrils, feel out the texture, rough string, solid win, slippery plastic, back off, try again. It was like watching a kid learn to tie shoes, fumbling until it clicks. But here's the kicker. When they trained the vines by gently guiding them day after day, those same plants remembered. 40 days later, 40. The untrained side of the plant would still reach smarter, faster, as if the whole vine had downloaded the memo. Memory in a pea plant. That wasn't reflex, that was rehearsal. Words spread like pollen on a breeze. Skeptics scoffed, coincidence, they said, or some hidden chemical trick. But the data kept coming, airtight and relentless. Take the shy mimosa, that bashful bean with leaves that snap shut at the slightest touch, like it's allergic to drama. Drop it and it plays dead, a defiance against grazers. But expose it to repeated drops, same height, same thud, and after a handful of times it stops flinching. Not because it's broken, shake it sideways and those leaves clamp like a vice. It's habituated, learned that drops aren't always doom. Experiments have shown this isn't a fluke. Mimosas count up to 5 touches before chilling out, then reset if the pattern breaks. Error correction. Intention. Behaviors we'd nod at in a puppy, but in a plant. The room went silent. By the early 2000s, whispers turned to roars. Conferences buzzed with side-eye glances as plant biologists crashed animal cognition panels, armed with graphs of root systems navigating mazes like rats in a psych lab. Roots don't just grow down, they scout. Stick a seedling in a pot with dry soil on one side, and its reddish-white tip, that root apex, a mere cluster of cells, senses moisture gradients, gravity pulls, even sounds vibrating through the dirt. It pivots, probes, chooses the wet path. Not blindly, it weighs options. Flood one side with water laced with neighbor root chemicals. It veers away, avoiding turf wars. This sounds crazy, but the experiments are airtight. Time-lapse footage shows roots pausing at forks, like a hiker checking a map, before committing. The pushback was fierce, deliciously so. Plants can't think without brains, cried the purists, clutching their neuron diagrams like holy relics. Fair point, no gray matter, no ganglia, nothing like the squishy command centers we animals flaunt. But wait. Single-celled amoebas solve mazes, bacteria quorum sense their way to feasts, slime molds build efficient Tokyo subway maps from oat flakes. Intelligence, it turns out, isn't gated by skull size, it's about outcomes in the chaos of real life. And plants, they're pros at chaos. Wild ones face apocalypse daily. Herbivores chomping leaves, fungi plotting invasions, droughts that turn soil to concrete. Lab plants, pampered in Petri dishes, look passive because survival's handed to them. But out there, they are strategists, adapting on the fly to boost odds of seeding the next generation. One pivotal moment sealed it: the fungal networks. You've heard the fairy tales, trees talking through mycorrhizal webs, those thread-like fungi lacing soil like an internet of roots. Experiments confirmed it. Wound a Douglas fir, and within hours, sugars and warning chemicals pulse through the grid to kin. Sibling saplings unrelated to the victim ignore the alert. Selfish? Or smart kin recognition? Pump in caterpillar spit mimics, and untouched relatives ramp up defenses, leaves thickening like armor. It's not magic, it's volatile organic compounds, Vox wafting as chemical Morse code. One whiff and the forest shifts gears. Researchers finally measured the cascade. Electrical spikes racing through phloem, genes flipping on like switches, whole canopies priming for battle. Undeniable. The tipping point? A 2016 review that stitched it all together. 70 definitions of intelligence, from philosophers to AI whizzes, boiled down to one core: the ability to choose wisely in flux, turning threats into triumphs, environments into edges. Plants nailed it, fitness as the ultimate scorecard, seeds as the proof. Critics who dismissed it as anthropomorphism projecting human smarts onto salads faced a flood of rebuttals. Electrical signals zipping at 1 cm per second through stems? Check. Calcium waves coordinating cell armies? Check. Cambium tissue, that thin green layer under bark, rerouting sap like a traffic cop during rush hour? Double check. It wasn't metaphor, it was mechanism. Suddenly, journals once allergic to plant cognition ran specials. TED talks bloomed with titles like What a Plant Knows. Funding poured in, not for yield tweaks, but for decoding root brains. The old guard grumbled, but data drowned them out. A vine that learns paths after dark. roots that count phosphorus pockets, leaves that eavesdrop on buzzing bees to time flowers. It piled up, a green avalanche. By 2020, the verdict was in. Plants aren't like intelligent. They are in ways that rewrite the rules. This shift, it's seismic. It upends ecology. Forests aren't passive stands, they're deliberating democracies. It rewires agriculture. Crops bred for adaptability, not just tonnage, could outsmart droughts. And it humbles us. We animals, with our big heads and bigger egos, thought cognition was our patent. Turns out, life's been iterating it for eons, in chlorophyll and cambium. The day science took plants seriously. It was the day we stopped talking down to the quiet giants holding our air, our food, our world. Buckle up, this is just the overture, the real mind bend. It's in how they define smart on their own terms. But let's pause, because that redefinition, it's the rocket fuel for everything else. Plants don't ponder in prose, they plot in pulses, choices carved from chemistry. And once you see it, every leaf twitches with intent. Welcome to the revolution. You're about to see your backyard as a battlefield of brilliance. The backlash lingered, of course, irresistible theater. One botanist quipped plant was just really good robots, echoing the gene-or-environment binary that's haunted biology. But robots don't improvise. They don't prime defenses after a single nibble, tweaking epigenetics so offspring inherit the paranoia. They don't bluff competitors with fake distress calls in Vox, luring predators to rivals. Experiments have shown goldenrod plants under siege release scents that scream, "I'm doomed," drawing wasps to the munchers, while healthy neighbors stay silent, unscented, safe. Deception, in weeds. Another critic waved the locomotion flag. No movement, no mind. As if roots slithering miles through soil, tendrils lassoing branches, or stomata gaping like eyes aren't motion enough. Plants move, slow, sure, surgically. A sunflower tracks the sun not by magic, but by hormone gradients flipping like a compass needle, petals pivoting to max light. It's choreography, not chance. The clincher came from the wild. Lab sterility masks smarts, unleash plants in the fray, and they shine. Scatter Arabidopsis seeds in patchy soil, and survivors forage like pros, roots thickening toward bounty, shoots skimping on barren. Competition culls the clueless, the cunning thrives. Darwin glimpsed it, root caps as brains of lower organisms, sensing, steering. Modern probes confirm, those tips juggle 15 signals, light seeping through soil. Check. Aluminium toxicity, dodge, bacterial buddies, recruit. By mid-decade, the tide turned tidal. Plant neurobiology emerged, not nerves but networks, action potentials in veins, hormone hubs in meristems. Conferences overflowed with hybrid talks, AI meets algae, ecology crashes cognition. A landmark paper mapped it, intelligence as emergent, from cell chats to canopy consensus. No central boss, distributed decisions, resilient as blockchain. You feel it now, right? That itch to re-see the ficus on your shelf. It's not decor, it's a decision engine, weighing water, light, your fumbling fingers. The scientific community didn't take plants seriously out of charity. They had to, evidence eviscerated excuses. And in that reckoning, we all did. The green world woke up, winking back. What's next? How they choose to be clever. Chapter 2, Intelligence, completely redefined. A definition that actually fits roots and leaves. Okay, let's cut the poetry for a second and get surgical. What even is intelligence? We've all got a gut take. Einstein-level IQ, chess savants outfoxing grandmasters, your golden retriever faking limps for treats. But that's animal goggles, brain-bound, quick-witted, showy. Slap that on plants and they flop. No cortex for conundrums, no eyes for eavesdropping. So for years, botanists shrugged. Smart, sure if survival counts, but real intelligence, nah. Wrong, dead wrong. Turns out the old definitions were as narrow as a needle's eye, tailored for critters that chase and chatter. Dig deeper, scour psych texts, AI manifestos, evolutionary tomes, and a pattern emerges. Intelligence isn't fireworks, it's fitness forged in fire. It's choosing between bad and worse, adapting to ambush, profiting from pain. In raw terms, the knack for navigating chaos to crank out more you. Seeds as scorecards, and plants, they are aces at it. Picture this, Latin roots of the word *intelligere*, to choose between. Boom. Plants do that hourly. Sun-scorched slope or shady valley, root left, shoot right. Herbivore slobber or fungal fiend. Pump poisons or call cavalry. It's not autopilot, it's assessment. Experiments have shown it crystal clear. Set up a Y maze for roots, moist arm laced with salt, dry arm pure H2O, and watch. The apex hesitates, probes both, picks the lesser evil. Not random. Stats show 80% nail it first tries, learning from leaks. Redefine it broader, and it snaps into focus. Take the 70-odd takes from brainiacs across fields. Psychologists prattle on problem-solving, biologists bank on adaptation, game theorists geek on gains. Mash me and you get gold. Intelligence is a trait that shines in interaction, with dirt, bugs, breeze, 2 tied to thriving toward a goal like seeding kin, 3 elastic, reshaping for new threats. Plants tick every box. Interact. They are sensor sponges, 20,000 genes for signaling, cells gossiping via calcium blips. Goal, fitness, proxy, offspring overload. Elastic, phenotypic plasticity on steroids, same genome, wildly different forms from desert spikes to jungle vines. This sounds crazy, but the experiments are airtight. Wild radishes in contested plots. They skewer more seeds when rivals crowd via flower tweaks and pollen ploys. Cost-benefit calculus floral addition. Or consider counting. Yes, counting. Clover nods to 5 nitrogen pulses before blooming, fewer and it holds out. It's metering resources, betting on bounty. Profiting from experience, that's learning's shadow, but we'll hit that later. Point is, intelligence here is pragmatic, not parlor trick. It's the poker bluff that banks the pot, the route-reroute that dodges the jam. Why redefine? Because the old one gated genius to ganglia. Mrs. Microbes quorum-sensing feasts, amoebas ambling mazes, even viruses hacking hosts. Plants fit seamless, sessile spies rooted in reality. No dash and grab, their game is endurance chess, centuries-spanning strategies encoded in rings and rhizomes. Cambium that sly strip, divis sugars like a banker, starving slack branches, fattening frontrunners. Drought hits, prioritize roots. Flood, pump shoots. It's allocation artistry, optimizing the phenotype to punch through peril. Let me walk you through what actually happens in a crisis. Say aphids ambush an oak. First signal, saliva sensors fire, spitting jasmine alarms. Cells confer, Ca2+ waves ripple like texts in a group chat, tallying damage. Assessment, localized or legion. If legion, vox vent, complex cocktails, 20+ compounds, screaming specifics. Neighbors sniff parse, caterpillar cocktail, nah, sapsucker scent. They tweak tannins, thicken walls. Sender, it might feign frailty, luring ladybugs. Game on. Fitness flex, the quick adapt, outbreed the slow. This reframe flips the script. No longer plant smarts as cute analogy, it's core biology. Darwin dug it, roots as lower brains, choosing paths. Modern math backs it. Network models show interactomes, cell protein webs mirroring connectomes, neuron nets. Power law links, hubs and spokes, resilient routes. Poke one path, others reroute. Same as your thoughts dodging distractions. But here's the wild part. It scales. Single cell to stand of sequoias. A guard cell, stomata sentry, swells or shrinks onion fluxes, balancing CO2 and drought like a bouncer eyeing the line. Whole forest, mycelial meshes merge decisions, resources routed rhizome to rhizome. Emergent intelligence, self-organizing symphony. You won't believe this, but it ties to consciousness whispers. If smarts stem from choice in context, awareness might lurk in the loops, feedback refining feels. Not I think, therefore I am, but I adapt, therefore I sense. Plants sense deep, Magnetic fields via cryptochromes, sounds via vibrating veins, even self via unique VOC signatures. Alien roots, repel, kin, share. Redefined, intelligence fits like a glove, green, veined, vital. It's not human light, it's plant pure, honed by eons immobile. Thriving in stillness demands sharper wits than sprinting. Your tomato, that red rebel, isn't just fruiting, it's forecasting, betting blooms on bee buzz, hedging against hail. Every leaf's a ledger, every root a risk assessor. This lens, it liberates. No more begging for brain cred, plants own their savvy. And us, we borrow mimicking plasticity for resilient crops, learning from their long game grace. Intelligence, untethered from neurons, blooms universal. Roots and leaves, they are the originals. Choose to see it, and the world's greener, sharper, alive with options. What's a plant choosing right now in your pot, plotting its next move? Critics cling, too loose, any survivor wins. True-ish, but nuance nails it. Not all adapt equal, some lactify, others perish. Experiments tag the champs, those with robust signaling, memory marks, social savvy. It's graded genius, not binary. A fern frond furls at frost, basic. A fig fools wasps with pheromones, timing figs to flyby. Masterclass. Analogy time, think traffic systems. City gridlock, dumb reroutes jam worse. Smart ones, sensors, signals, learning peaks, flow. Plants are that, phloem highways, hormone headlights, past jams remembered. One blight wave and immunity imprints epigenetically etched. Redefine and ethics creep in. If oaks orchestrate defenses, do we owe them more than mulch? Agriculture awakens, breed for brainy, not bulky. Drought dodgers that decide, not just endure. Bottom line, intelligence plant style is choice chained to change. Fitness-fueled, environment-embraced. It fits because it's forged there in the grit, the green. Leaves unfurl not blind, but bedding bold. Roots delve deliberate. The definition, it's them. Alive, assessing, ascending. Your turn to adapt. Chapter 3. A body that never stops choosing decision-making at every scale, all the time. Here's the thrill. Plants aren't one-and-done deciders. No CEO in the crown bossing branches. They're a ceaseless congress, cells voting, tissues tallying, organs arbitrating, all in perpetual poll. Every second, choices cascade, sip or surge, defend or divert, bloom or bunker. It's a body wired for what-ifs, scales stacked like Russian dolls, each layer layering logic. Start small the cell. Guard cells flanking stomata, tiny gates but titans of trade-off. Open wide for gas exchange, risk water loss like a leaky faucet. Clench tight, starve for CO2, photosynthesis flatlines. Sensors scan, humidity hum, light load, internal CO2 count. Ions influx, turgor tips, decision drops, gape or grip. Billions do it in sync but individually. Each weighs its micro-world, local lord. Scale up the leaf. Veins vector resources, valves vending to veins. Aphid alert. Local lockdowns, salicylate surges, sealing sectors. But wait, is it worth the wall-up? Energy math, fortify and faint or signal stem for squad. Leaf lobbies, phloem ferries the feedback. Whole blade buys in or bows out. Now the plant proper, a symphony of solos. Shoots scout sky, roots raid soil but harmony, hard won. Cambium, that cunning cylinder, is conductor. Thin as a razor, it crafts conduits, xylem straws, phloem pipes, divvying drips. Branch lagging, starve it, sap shunted to stars. Symmetric. Only if stakes even. Shade one side, and the merry band migrates, resources rerouted like a CEO slashing slacker. Decades deep, old rings record the reallocations, tree trunk a tally of tough calls. You won't believe this, but roots run the real show. That apex, 200 cells, root cap crew acts holistic, like a hive mind in mud. Darwin dubbed it brain of lower beast, and damn if he wasn't spot on. It juggles 15 signals, gravity via starch statoliths tumbling like dice, moisture magnets pulling probes, even neighbor exudates whispering back off. Pause at path splits, pulse proteins, pick, not rote, adaptive. Acid soil ahead, upregulate pumps detour, bacterial bomb. Invite in, trade sugars for security. Let me walk you through a root raid. Seed sprouts, apex emerges, scout supreme. Soil's a labyrinth, nutrient nodes, nemesis nests, water webs. Cap cells confer, electrical zaps zip advice, hormones hash options. Left lure low nitrogen, right rich but risky rivals. It tests tendrils, tastes traces, tallies tolls. Commit and collaterals chase, thickening trails. Wrong way, abort, backtrack error etched for kin. This ceaseless choosing, its self-organization supreme. No top-down tyrant, bottom-up brilliance. Interactomes the infrastructure, 100,000 proteins linking like LAN cables, bits binary, bind or bounce. Signal in, assessment amps, output out, gene tweaks, growth gears, complex as C. Elegans connectome, that worm's 300 neuron net but decentralized. Poke a path, parallels persist, resilience baked in. Wild example, the vine virtuoso. Morning glory mazes, poles, strings, snares. Tendrils touch, twirl tentative, texture test, grip or glide. Success, memory marks, meristem memos, next spirals. Fail, forget fast, flex, whole vine votes, successful side swells, slack shrinks. Body-wide ballot, blooming bias. Or the tree triage. Storm snaps a limb, cambium clamps, calls kin via vox, wound wide, wolves within. Neighbors nod, needles needle toxins. But choice, share sap or hoard. Kin get the goods, strangers stiffed. Game theory green, cooperate close, compete cruel. Scale epic, forest forums. Mycorrhizae mesh millions, meters of mycelium mediating. Douglas fir distress. Pulse warnings, not generic, specific, bug brew, drought dirge. Recipients reckon, relation, relay, rival, radio silence. Resources route, carbon credits underground, phosphorus payouts. It's niche negotiation, collective calculus boosting the bunch. This never stops, it's the secret sauce. Animals decide episodic, hunt, hide, hump. Plants, perpetual, light shifts, replot, pest patrols, reprioritize. 24/7 strategy etched in every elongation. Analogies abound. Internet routing, packets picking paths, stock traders toggling trades, ant colonies casting consensus. But here's the gut punch, it costs. Choices chew energy, ATP for assessments, calories for calls. Fitter plants finesse it, false positives few. Lab loungers lag, wild whizzes win. Experiments expose isolated Arabidopsis, sloppy, social soil, sharper, siblings sinking scans. Mind blower, counting kin. P roots release slimes, self-sent signatures. Same slime, sidle up, share, strangers, squeeze out. It's IDing in the Inkai, deciding domicile. Every scale sings the same, choose or croak. Cell to canopy decisions the drumbeat. Cambium chessmasters centuries, apices ace the now. Body as ballot box, buzzing with bets. Your basil, it's bargaining, light for leaves, water for winds, never idle, always investing intent. In that hum, the hidden heart, a world weighing wonders, one whisper at a time. You're listening to Singularity Minus One. If you're enjoying these random facts, subscribe and follow us on YouTube and Spotify, drop a like, leave a comment, share it with a friend. It means the world. Quick note, we do our absolute best to be factually correct, but if we ever slip up, call us out in the comments so we can fix it. Thanks for being here, now back to the facts. Chapter 4, Plants that Learn from Experience, Remember Threats, and Literally Level Up. Imagine you're a young pea plant, just unfurling your first leaves into a world that's equal parts sunlight and sabotage. A caterpillar shows up, not for a polite nibble, but to chew through half your shoot like it's auditioning for a horror flick. You panic, well, as much as a plant can. Chemicals flood your system, toxins harden your leaves, and you pump out a distress signal that makes nearby kinfolk beef up their defenses. The bug backs off, or maybe it doesn't, but either way, the attack leaves a scar. Not a visible one, but a chemical echo etched into your cells like a post-it note from hell. Caterpillar, bad news, next time hit harder. This isn't some poetic fancy. Experiments have shown that when researchers expose pea seedlings to hungry caterpillars, the plants don't just react, they remember. Weeks later, even after the threat vanishes, those same plants deploy defenses faster, stronger, and with less energy wasted. It's called priming, and it's the plant equivalent of leveling up in a video game. One brush with disaster, and suddenly you're not the noob anymore. You're the survivor with cheat codes unlocked. You won't believe this, but this memory sticks around for the entire growing season, turning a one-off skirmish into a lifelong strategy session. Let's back up and unpack what learning even means for something without a brain. In humans, we think learning is all neurons firing, synapses strengthening, maybe a dopamine hit for good measure. For plants, it's sneakier, rooted in the same cellular machinery that handles everything from photosynthesis to sex, epigenetic tweaks, chemical cascades, and a web of signals that whisper across tissues like gossip in a small town. Take the classic case of the sensitive mimosa. Touch it once and it folds up like it's allergic to drama. Do it again and again and something clicks. By the 10th poke, it's ignoring you completely, as if saying, yeah, harmless. Back to business. Researchers habituated it to repeated, non-threatening drops, drop from a height, no pain, and after a few dozen rounds, the plant stops collapsing. It's not exhaustion. Reintroduce a real threat, like fire or chemicals, and bam, defenses snap back on. This sounds crazy, but the experiments are airtight. The plant has learned the difference between annoyance and annihilation. Or consider the tobacco plant, that scrappy survivor of backyards and labs alike. When hornworms munch on its leaves, it doesn't just swell up with nicotine. It starts eavesdropping on the bugs' chewing vibrations. Those crunch sounds trigger a full-body alarm, ramping up defenses in untouched leaves faster than you can say earwig apocalypse. But here's the kicker. Expose it to the same vibrations without the actual eating, and over time, the plant tunes it out. It's associative learning, straight out of Pavlov's playbook, but with herbivores instead of bells. The data is now undeniable. Plants aren't just reacting. They're pattern matching, filing away vibration plus saliva equals doom in a memory bank that lasts days, influencing how they allocate resources for the next assault. And memory? Oh, plants don't just remember threats, they pass the memo down generations. Epigenetic memory is the star here, chemical tags on your DNA that flip genes on or off without rewriting the code. Think of it like sticky notes on a cookbook. Double the salt next time. When Arabidopsis plants get hammered by drought, survivors tag their chromatin, silencing water waster genes and cranking up drought-hardy ones. Their kids inherit those tags, sprouting tougher in dry soil without ever sipping the sand themselves. Experiments confirm it. Stress a parent plant, and offspring show up 20 to 30% more resilient, as if the family tree came with a survival FAQ. This isn't Lamarckian fantasy. It's measurable, heritable adaptation that lets wild plants level up their lineage before the dice even roll. But let's get real. Why does this matter? Because in the wild, forgetting is fatal. A forest isn't a spa retreat. It's a gladiator arena where 99% of seedlings bite the dust before blooming. Plants that learn from near misses outcompete the forgetful ones, hoarding energy for roots instead of wasted panic. Picture a vine climbing a trellis. Train it leftward with gentle tugs, and it complies, twisting toward light. Cut the strings, wait 40 days, over a month of nothing, and restring it the same way. The vine remembers the path, snaking right back without a single prompt. It's motor memory, pure and simple, like riding a bike after hibernation. Researchers tested this on climbing beans. One group trained, the other left to flail. The trained ones hit the top 50% faster, their stems etched with the ghost of old guidance. This isn't coincidence. It's proof that plants encode experience into growth patterns, turning trial and error into a roadmap. Now scale it up. Herbivory priming isn't just personal, it's social. When one sagebrush gets chomped, it belches out volatile chemicals that warn neighbors. Incoming! Unaffected plants nearby ramp up their own toxins within hours, cutting grazer damage by half. Experiments in open fields show this network effect. A single attacked plant shields a 10-meter radius, like a neighborhood watch with pheromones. And it's not blind alarm, plants count attacks. Low-level nibbles get ignored, heavy barrages trigger full lockdown. One study tallied it. 5 touches from a grasshopper proxy and defenses spike. 3, and it's cricket's pun intended. Plants are literally tallying threats, weighing costs like a shrewd accountant. Is this worth the energy burn? This learning isn't static either. It's adaptive, tweaking based on context. In nutrient-poor soil, a primed plant might dial back leaf defenses to funnel carbs underground, betting on roots over topside brawn. Flood it with fertilizer. Suddenly, it's all about above-ground fortification. Experiments swapping environments mid-season reveal this plasticity. Plants update their memory, reallocating like a startup pivoting mid-fundraise. And error correction? Plants do that too. Miss a cue, overreact to a false alarm, and feedback loops fine-tune the system. A wounded leaf that turns out fine sends inhibitory signals, dialing down the panic so next time isn't a false positive fiasco. You might be thinking, okay, but is this really intelligence or just fancy chemistry? Fair question. But here's the rub. Human learning relies on the same tricks: associations, reinforcements, memory consolidation, minus the neurons. Plants use ion fluxes and hormone gradients as their synapses, Ca2 plus waves as action potentials. The outcome? Behavior that profits from experience, the gold standard of smarts. A plant that remembers drought doesn't just survive, it thrives, outpacing naive rivals by 40% in yield. In crop fields, this translates to hard cash. Prime tomatoes fend off blight better, needing fewer sprays. Wild or farmed, learning plants are the MVPs, turning the chaos of existence into a calculated climb. But wait, there's a darker edge. What if learning backfires? Overprimed plants can get paranoid, burning energy on ghost threats, stunting growth. It's the plant version of PTSD, a reminder that intelligence isn't flawless, it's forged in the fire of trade-offs. Yet even here, evolution hones it. Only the balanced learners persist, their memories a Goldilocks zone of caution and calm. As you read this, somewhere a root is probing soil, recalling last summer's arsenic spike and veering left. A leaf is unfolding, heeding the echo of locust wings from afar. Plants aren't just enduring, they're evolving on the fly, one lesson at a time. And if that doesn't make you rethink the quiet genius under your feet, nothing will. This learning loop closes the circle on fitness. Remember, intelligence boils down to choices that boost survival odds. A plant that levels up from experience isn't gambling, it's stacking the deck. Experiments across species, from thale crest to sunflowers, pile on the evidence. Memory isn't a luxury, it's the edge between seed and dust. So next time you swat a bug off your basil, whisper thanks. That herb might just be schooling you on resilience, one volatile cue at a time. Chapter 5. The silent, lightning-fast network running inside every living stem. Deep inside a sunflower stalk, there's a storm you can't hear. A blitz of electrical pulses zipping through vascular highways at 1 centimeter per second, faster than a snail on espresso. It's not thunder, it's the plant's nervous system, a decentralized grid of ions and molecules routing info from root to tip like packets on the internet. Touch a leaf, and within milliseconds, a calcium wave surges up the stem, triggering curls, swells, or shutdowns. This isn't slow diffusion. It's action potentials, the same electrical spikes that make your muscles twitch, but here they're ferrying commands across phloem and xylem like express mail in a living subway. You won't believe this, but researchers have wired up plants to oscilloscopes and watched the fireworks. Pinch of Venus flytraps trigger hairs, once nothing, twice in 20 seconds and zap, the lobes clap shut on dinner. That snap. powered by an electrical signal blasting from sensor cells to motor ones, depolarizing membranes in a chain reaction. It's not random, it's coded, with frequency and amplitude dictating trap prey versus ignore breeze. Scale it to a whole tree. Wound a branch and electrical fronts ripple downward, sealing vessels and rallying resins before infection sets in. The data is airtight. Signals propagate 100 times faster than hormone diffusion, turning a tree from passive log to active sentinel. But electricity's just the express lane. The real wizardry is the chemical underbelly, a soup of volatiles, hormones, and peptides chatting across air and soil. Imagine jasmine as the plant's adrenaline. Flood a wounded leaf, and it broadcasts evacuate to neighbors, who then thicken cell walls like riot shields. Ethylene, the coordinator whispering ripen now to fruit or drop leaves in drought. And salicylate, the antiviral bouncer priming systemic acquired resistance that lasts weeks. Experiments show this network in action. Infect one tomato leaf with virus, and untouched ones light up with defensive genes within hours, courtesy of a roving signal molecule surfing the sap stream. This silent network isn't a straight wire. It's a mesh, self-organizing like ant colonies or stock markets. At the heart, the interactome, a web of 100,000 proteins linking and computing in every cell, forming hubs that fan out signals like routers in a smart home. Highly connected hubs, think kinase cascades, amplify weak inputs, peripheral nodes fine-tune locals. Damage one path, the system reroutes, resilient as a spiderweb after a poke. Researchers mapped it in yeast cells' plant cousins and found power law distributions. A few superconnectors handle the heavy lifting, ensuring info flows even if backups fry. In plants, this scales to organs. Roots sense nitrate and ping shoots to sprout more leaves, all via glutamate receptors borrowed from animal brains. Let's zoom to the volatiles, the plant's language of the air. These aren't random scents. They're cocktails, 20 to 50 compounds blended like words in a sentence. I'm attacked might be methyl jasmine plus green leaf volatiles, wafting 50 meters to warn kin, who parse it and respond. Got it, arming up. Alien plants, they ignore or counter-signal. Self-recognition kicks in too. Cut a branch, expose it to your own volatiles, and wound healing accelerates. Use a stranger, and defenses spike instead. Experiments in chambers prove it. Receiver plants sniff donor emissions and tailor replies, like decoding enemy radio chatter. Underground, it's mycorrhizal Morse code. Fungi lace roots into a wood-wide web, shuttling nutrients and alerts faster than solo roots could dream. A Douglas fir under pest siege pumps carbs to fungal partners, who relay warnings to saplings 30 meters away. Unrelated ones get a trickle, relatives, the full load. Carbon-14 tracing shows the flow. Distress hits, signals surge, aid arrives in days. It's not charity, it's investment, with fungi taxing a cut like toll roads. But the smarts. Plants choose partners, favoring reliable fungi with sweeter sugars, ditching cheaters via chemical blacklists. This network hums with counting, too. Root tips tally phosphorus hits, low levels. Grow laterals like fingers probing dark. Plenty. Consolidate mains. Bean roots exposed to varying nitrate pulses remember patterns, optimizing foraging like a GPS recalculating route. And error correction, built in. A false alarm floods the system with inhibitors, damping overreactions so next ping isn't drowned in noise. It's feedback loops galore. Sensors query, effectors report, the mesh adjusts in real time. Analogy time, picture the plant as a bustling city. Xylem's the interstate for water and minerals, phloem the delivery trucks for sugars. Electrical signals, emergency sirens blaring shortcuts, chemicals, billboards and whispers directing traffic, volatiles. Radio broadcasts, fungal nets the subway. No mayor's office, just emergent order where local rules birth global genius. Disrupt a vein, side streets open. Starve a sector, reserves reroute. Experiments slashing vascular tissues confirm. Plants compensate, yields dipping mere 10% versus total blackout. The wild part? This runs silent, at scales from cell to canopy. A single guard cell decides to open pores based on CO2 pings, rippling to whole leaf gas exchange. Up top, a canopy votes on shade responses, hormones pooling until consensus hits. Grow tall or bush out. It's distributed computing, no central CPU, just a chorus of choices syncing via the net. Why lightning fast? Survival. In the wild, delays kill. A deer's bite. Signal it in seconds or bleed out. Drought creeping. Wave it up from roots before wilting sets. This network isn't luxury. It's the pulse of persistence, turning inert cellulose into a vigilant machine. As you sip coffee from a bean that learned its brew, know this. Every stem's a supercomputer, silently strategizing your next meal. Chapter 6. The line we're afraid to cross. When does clever behavior become awareness? Here's the question that keeps philosophers up at night and biologists reaching for antacids. If a plant learns, decides, and communicates like a pro, does it feel the choice? We're talking awareness, that slippery spark where smart mechanics shade into something subjective. What it's like to be a root probing poison or a leaf baking in drought. Science shies from this, labeling it woo-woo, but the evidence piles up. Behavior's too flexible, too intentional to chalk up to blind chemistry. You won't believe this, but when researchers probe deeper, the line blurs, not into fairy tales, but into a biocentric rethink of mind itself. Start with the basics. Awareness, in minimal terms, is phenomenal experience. The raw ouch of pain, the glow of warmth, not the process story we layer on. Animals get it via nerves, plants. No central brain, but a vascular core, echoing neural hubs, phloem bundles processing signals like interneurons, xylem ferrying ions akin to axons. Experiments light this up. Electrical waves in mimosa mimic neural action potentials, frequency coded for threat level. Pinch once. Mild depolarization, a shrug. Twice. Full spike, trap, or fold. It's not reflex, it's assessed with memory modulating speed, familiar touch, dampened response as if the plant senses safety. This sounds crazy, but consider decision-making under duress. A pea plant at a fork, blue light left growth cue, red right shade threat. It bends left, but only after a Ca2+ debate, waves oscillating, peaking when choice locks in. Researchers imaged it. Ions surge, pause, recalibrate based on prior experience. It's like a chess clock ticking options, weighing odds. If awareness greases adaptive gears, this fits. Subjective stakes sharpen selection, turning random twitches into purposeful pivots. Data from split-root setups seals it. Half the roots in drought, the other in plenty. The plant chooses to shrink the dry side, funneling water like a gambler hedging bets. No brain required, just integrated sensing that feels the imbalance. The afraid part? Anthropocentrism. We gatekeep mind behind mobility, nerves, eyes, traits plants ditched eons ago for sessile smarts. But evolution doesn't care about our biases, it rewards what works. Plants forage light via phytotropins, anticipate night via circadian clocks synced to lunar tides. Experiments show Venus's flytraps, count to 5, 4 brushes, tease, 5, snap. It's not gears clicking, it's threshold awareness, a tally of intent where vague pokes fade, deliberate ones register. Scale to forests, trees vote on carbon sink via mycorrhizal poles, aid flowing to stressed kin. If that's not collective awareness, a felt web of mutual need, what is? Enter plant neurobiology, the field's rebel child. It posits vascular tissues as a proto-nervous net, action potentials in sieve tubes, synaptic-like gaps at plasmodesmata. Wound a stem, electrical fronts cascade, but with gating. Signals amplify only if context screams urgency. Like neural plasticity, repeated stimuli strengthen paths, etching habits. Researchers zapped Arabidopsis with lasers. Mild burns prime faster healing next time, as if the plant asterisk recalls asterisk the sting, not just the scar. Chemical echoes. Glutamate receptors, yes. Plant versions flood with pain ions, mimicking animal nociception. It's not metaphor, it's mechanism, hinting at a phenomenal undercurrent. But awareness isn't solo, it's scaffolded. Theories of consciousness, integrated information, global workspace, predictive processing don't demand neurons. Take it. Awareness arises where info integrates maximally, birthing unified experience. Plants score here. Interactomes churn 5 values rivaling simple worms, their webs fusing sensory shards into coherent no's. A root cap juggling gravity, moisture, nematodes. That's integration on steroids, a felt gradient guiding turn. Or global workspace, broadcast signals to all modules for arbitration. Plant hormones do this, ethylene announcing stress till consensus hits, abscise or endure. Experiments blocking signals show paralysis, not mechanical failure, but lost coordination, like a mind fogged. Predictive coding seals the wild card. Brains and maybe plants forecast worlds, minimizing errors. A vine expects trellis from touch history, coiling preemptively. Miss it? Prediction error spikes Ka2+, recalibrating like a jolt of surprise. This isn't computation. It's anticipatory asterisk feeling asterisk, the itch of mismatch driving adaptation. Data from habituated plants. Remove cues and withdrawal responses echo, drooping as if disoriented. If prediction errors feel like pangs in us, why not a vegetal twinge? The line, it's not crossed, it's porous. Clever behavior tips to awareness when it demands subjective stake. Why asterisk this asterisk choice, not that? Plants show it in kin favoritism. Volatiles coded for self versus other, responses warmer to family sense. Or tool use, sundews lasso, prey with mucilage, timing sticky snares to vibrations. Intentionality drips from these, not blind evolution, but moment-to-moment agency. Critics cry just stimulus response, but chain enough, and emergence brews mind. A bacterium decides paths via chemical gradients, scale to trillions in a plant, and you've got a chorus that might hum with qualia. Irreverent truth, we're scared because it upends Eden. Plants as aware, no dominion, just coexistence with silent sages. Yet benefits beckon, ethical farming, eco-insight, test it. Probe with IIT metrics on root brains, image error waves during dilemmas, disrupt integrations, watch confusion. If behaviors crumble sans felt unity, we've got our hint. So as dusk falls on your windowsill fern, consider, is it just photosynthesizing or quietly asterisk sensing asterisk the fade, plotting tomorrow's stretch? The evidence whispers yes, and that whisper, it might be the sound of paradigms cracking. Awareness in green, not if when. And when we cross that line, the world greens deeper, every leaf a lens on life's quiet genius. You're listening to Singularity Minus One. If you're enjoying these random facts, subscribe and follow us on YouTube and Spotify, drop a like, leave a comment, share it with a friend. It means the world. Quick note, we do our absolute best to be factually correct, but if we ever slip up, call us out in the comments so we can fix it. Thanks for being here, now back to the facts. Chapter 7, The Single Cell That Thinks, Proof Intelligence Doesn't Require a Brain. Imagine this. You're staring at a single plant cell under a microscope, that unassuming blob of green protoplasm floating in a droplet of water. It's got no neurons firing like fireworks, no gray matter folding into clever creases, no central command center barking orders. Just a membrane, some organelles bobbing around like lazy tourists, and a nucleus that's basically a filing cabinet for DNA. And yet, this lone ranger of the cellular world is quietly pulling off feats that would make a supercomputer blush. It's sensing the world, weighing options, adapting on the fly, and sometimes even remembering past screw-ups to avoid them next time. You won't believe this, But experiments have shown that a single cell can learn from touch, count mechanical stresses up to 5 times before throwing in the towel, and reroute its entire metabolic highway to outsmart a toxin. This isn't some fringe theory whispered in dimly lit labs. It's data that's piling up like autumn leaves, forcing us to rewrite the rules of what thinking even means. Welcome to the thoughtful cell, where intelligence isn't about size or sophistication. It's about raw, gritty survival in a world that wants to squash you flat. Let's back up a second, because if you're like most folks, your brain's screaming, "Cells don't think. That's anthropomorphic nonsense." Fair enough. We've all grown up with this tidy little story. Intelligence requires a brain, a nervous system, something centralized to crunch the numbers and call the shots. Animals have it, sure. Your cat plotting world domination from the windowsill, or octopuses solving puzzles with their distributed mini-brains in each arm. But plants? Nah, they're just passive photosynthesizers, soaking up sun like solar panels on autopilot. Except that's a myth, shattered by one Nobel-winning plant biologist who dared to call a spade a spade. In her big moment on the world stage, she tossed out this bombshell. Every cell knows itself intimately, and when push comes to shove, it uses that self-knowledge in a thoughtful way. Thoughtful. That's the word she chose, not reactive or programmed. Thoughtful, like a chess player pausing before the knight's gambit. What does thoughtful look like at the cellular level? Picture a yeast cell. Yeah, that fungus lurking in your bread dough, trapped in a maze of sugar gradients. It's not got eyes or a GPS, but it senses the sweetness wafting from one direction, the bitterness from another. Does it blindly barrel forward? Nope. Experiments have shown it pauses, assesses the payoff. More sugar equals more energy for division, i.e., more baby yeasts, and veers toward the jackpot. That's choice, baby, raw assessment of options, picking the one that boosts fitness. Or take bacteria, those microscopic hustlers in your gut. When antibiotics rain down like chemical Armageddon, some don't just die off. They huddle up, share plasmids like contraband recipes, and evolve resistance mid-battle. That's not dumb luck. That's collective problem-solving, where each cell decides whether to sacrifice for the group or go rogue. And plants, their cells do this solo in spades. Here's where it gets wild. Plant cells aren't just reacting. They're processing information like a tiny data center. Every cell's got this insane network inside, an interactome, if you want the fancy term, where proteins link up in a web that's more tangled than your headphone cords after a hike. Think of it like the Internet of Things, but crammed into a space smaller than a pinprick. One protein bump into a receptor on the cell wall, triggered by, say, a drought signal. Boom, calcium ions flood in like emergency responders, flipping switches on enzymes that crank out stress proteins. But it doesn't stop there. The cell cross-checks this against internal memories, chemical tags from past dry spells, epigenetic marks that say, "Hey, remember that time we almost croaked?" Don't repeat it. Then it weighs the cost. Divert energy from growth to survival mode, or risk it all for a bloom. 9 times out of 10, it chooses wisely, optimizing for the long game. Researchers have measured this in guard cells, the portholes on leaves that control gas exchange. Under heat stress, they decide to slam shut, conserving water at the expense of photosynthesis. It's a gamble, but one backed by flawless math. Shut too early, starve. Too late, wilt. The data, airtight. Cells that learn to time it right survive 30% longer in fluctuating labs, mimicking wild swings. You want proof it thinks? Let's talk counting. Ever heard of the mimosa pudica, that shy plant that folds its leaves like it's playing dead at the slightest poke? Turns out, a single cell in its petiole, the stem holding the leaf, can tally mechanical disturbances. Experiments dropped it from heights, shook it like a maraca, even blasted it with air puffs. 1 touch, it droops dramatically, a full-on faint. 2, less so. By the 5th, it's basically ignoring you, habituated like a toddler to a sibling's pranks. But here's the kicker. Wait 40 minutes and that memory fades, resetting the counter. It's not random, it's adaptive. In the wild, a gust of wind shouldn't trigger full panic mode every time, or the plant would exhaust itself folding and unfolding. So the cell learns. Mild shakes are noise, save the drama for real threats like a grazing deer. This is habituation, folks, non-associative learning, straight out of Psych 101, but in a cell with no synapses. And reversal learning, even better. Train it to expect water after a shake, then withhold it, and the cell unlearns the association, pivoting to drought prep. That's flexibility, the hallmark of smarts. But don't stop at learning. These cells remember. Take epigenetic memory, that sneaky way cells jot notes in their DNA without rewriting the code. When a cell faces herbivore spit, those nasty chemicals in bug saliva, it tags genes with methyl groups, like sticky notes saying, activate defenses now. Next infestation. Those tags speed up the response by hours, priming the whole plant like a veteran soldier hearing distant thunder. Experiments with tomatoes showed this. Exposed seedlings inherit the tag through cell division, mounting faster walls of toxins against caterpillars. It's not Lamarckian fantasy, it's chemical shorthand, passed cell to cell like gossip in a small town. And the cost? Minimal. The cell assesses, is the threat recurring? If yes, keep the tag. If not, erase it to free up resources. That's thoughtful efficiency, choosing between short-term savings and long-term security. Now scale it down further, because if a whole cell can think, what about its parts? Mitochondria, those ancient bacterial squatters powering the cell, vote on energy allocation during stress. Flooded with signals, they dial down ATP production to avoid overload, like dimming lights in a storm. Chloroplasts, the green engines, sense light quality and decide to shift pigments, optimizing harvest like a solar farm tracking the sun. It's decentralized genius, no boss required. Compare it to your nervous system. Neurons fire in chains, but plant cells. Every link is a decider, a mini CPU in the network. Experiments modeling this as a connectome, mapping protein wires, reveal power law distributions, hubs with dozens of connections, just like brain cells. Ablate one. The system reroutes, resilient as hell. That's why centrifuging a plant cell leaves behind a goopy mess. But the supernatant? Enzyme-free, because the real action was in those dynamic links, self-organizing on the fly. Skeptical, let's hit the road test. In Petri dishes mimicking soil toxins, single algal cells, plant cousins, navigate chemical gradients, choosing paths that minimize poison exposure. Track their flagella, they twitch toward safety, pause at forks, then commit. Random? Nope. Statistical models show decision thresholds, Bayesian inference in action, updating beliefs based on new data. Or consider wound response in tobacco cells. Nick one, and it floods neighbors with electrical pulses, a distress call that amps up defenses tenfold. But only if the wound's fresh. Old scars get ignored, memory filtering noise. This is problem solving at its core. Gather info, assess risk, act beneficially. Fitness proxy, survival rates skyrocket, primed cells fend off infections 50% better. Here's the mind bender. This cellular savvy scales up. A single thoughtful cell multiplies into tissues that act like orchestras, each musician improvising but harmonizing for the whole. No conductor, no problem. Self-organization rules, emergent intelligence from simple rules. It's like ant colonies building bridges without blueprints, local smarts yielding global wins. And the evidence? Mountains. From bacteria biofilms, voting on quorum sensing to yeast swarms dodging toxins, life's base layer is choosy, adaptive, aware in the barest sense. Plants just took it further, layering complexity without the neural crutch. So next time you brush off a dandelion as dumb weed, zoom in. That cell's hustling, calculating odds, learning curves steeper than your morning coffee grind. Intelligence without a brain. It's not just possible, it's the original blueprint. And if a speck of life can outthink our assumptions, what does that say about the forests whispering outside your window? Buckle up, we're just getting to the roots. Wait, hold on, let's dive deeper, because one chapter can't contain this cellular revolution. Rewind to that Nobel speech. The biologist wasn't waxing poetic. She was calling out the elephant in the lab. Cells aren't automatons, they're mini-minds, challenged by their world and rising with intent. Take the cytoskeleton, that internal scaffold of microtubules and actin filaments. It's not just structural, it's computational. Vibrate a cell, and filaments rearrange like abacus beads, tallying stress levels. Experiments with Arabidopsis cells showed they count to 5 osmotic shocks before triggering full plasmolysis, cell shrinkage as defines. 6. They bail, membranes intact. It's error correction, Bayesian updating. Prior shocks inform the threshold, adapting to chronic VS, acute threats. Analogy time. Imagine your phone's battery manager. It learns your habits. Do you doom scroll at 2 a.m.? And throttles apps accordingly. Plant cells do that with light. A chloroplast remembers shade patterns via proton gradients, shifting to far-red absorption when understory life demands it. Data from algal cultures. Exposed to flickering light, they habituate, ramping efficiency 20%. That's learning, pure and simple, and memory, chemical. Histone modifications lock in responses, heritable through mitosis. A stressed tobacco cell passes the torch to daughters, who know to preempt rust fungi. But choice, the heart of intelligence. In choice chambers, single guard cells face humidity gradients. High, open stomata for CO2 feast. Low, clamp shut, sacrificing lunch for hydration. The decision? Calcium waves assess, kinases vote, ions execute. Cost-benefit nailed. Open too long in dry air, cavitation rips vessels. Too tight, photosynthesis tanks. Models show its optimal foraging, Nash equilibrium in a droplet. Wild, right? This sounds crazy, but the experiments are airtight. Time-lapse microscopy catches the waves propagating, decisions unfolding in seconds. Extend to motility. Some cells swim like sperm cells in ferns. They sense chemoattractant, decide paths via cyclic nucleotides beating flagella toward ova. Random walk? No. Directed with error correction, backtrack on dead ends. It's proto-navigation, intelligence's seed. And in non-motile cells, Turgor pulses move the whole shebang, bending toward light like a slow-motion lunge. The payoff? Fitness. Thoughtful cells beget fitter plants. In fluctuating greenhouses, lines with robust cellular memory outcompete stiffs by 40% in seed set. It's evolution's whisper. Think small to win big. No brain needed, just a web of choices woven tight. This is the foundation, the atomic smarts that bubble up to roots and crowns. If cells think, plants are philosophers in green. Deeper still, information processing. Each cell handles bits, yes/no signals like a primitive code. Hormone binds, bit flip, yes, activate. But chains form languages. Jasmone plus ethylene equals, wound plus rot equals full lockdown. Experiments decoding this in potato cells. Parse the combo and they translate to protease inhibitors bug-proofing leaves. It's syntax, semantics in chemistry, and feedback, loops galore. Output signals return, modulating input, like echolocation for self-awareness. Error correction shines in DNA repair. UV hit, cell pauses replication, scans for mismatches, patches with polymerases. Wrong choice, apoptosis, self-sacrifice for the greater good. That's meta-intelligence, knowing when to quit. Data from irradiated algae. Survivors show 15% higher repair fidelity, learning from near misses via sirtuins. Social side, cells communicate. In aggregates, they quorum sense, deciding biofilm formation when density hits critical. Plant cells do it via plasmodesmata, simplistic chats. A stressed cell pulses glutamate, neighbors hear, amplify. It's gossip as strategy, coordinating defenses without a king. This cellular chorus hums the tune of intelligence. Assess, adapt, profit. No central throne, just distributed wisdom. Experiments confirm. Disrupt the interactome with inhibitors and cells flail, random responses, fitness crash. Restore, recovery with memory intact. It's resilient, scalable, alive with choice. So the single cell thinks not like us but effectively. It's the proof. Brains are luxury, not necessity. Intelligence is emergent from humble parts to harmonious whole. And if that's the base, wait till we hit the roots. They're not just digging, they're scheming. Chapter 8. Root tips acting like tiny brains and cambium playing resource chess across decades. Okay, let's plunge underground, where the real action brews in a tangle of dirt-clogged threads. Forget the leafy billboards above. The root tip is the plant's unsung CEO, a cluster of 200 cells packing more sensors than a spy gadget. This isn't some passive probe snuffling for water. It's a dynamic dashboard, juggling gravity, moisture, nutrients, pathogens, and neighbors like an air traffic controller on Red Bull. Experiments have shown it can map soil gradients in hours, rerouting growth to dodge compaction or chase phosphorus veins, all while coordinating with shoots thousands of times its size. And the cambium, that slender layer of meristematic mischief sandwiched between bark and wood. It's the grand strategist, allocating resources across years, decades, even like a banker playing 4D chess with sap flow and branch budgets. You won't believe this, but data reveals roots voting on expansion, cambium remembering past famines to prioritize drought-proof wood. This is plant intelligence in full throttle. Decentralized, anticipatory, ruthlessly efficient. No nerves, no problem. These tissues think in pulses, waves, and vascular bluffs, turning soil into a chessboard where every move counts toward survival. Start with the root cap, that slimy helmet capping the tip. Darwin called it the brain of lower organisms, and damn if he wasn't onto something. It's not just scraping through soil like a bulldozer, it's sensing, assessing, deciding. Packed with staticists, gravity detectors, and chemosensors for volatiles, it reads the underground news like a ticker tape. Lean left toward water. The cap secretes mucilage, lubricating the slide, while amyloplast sediment, triggering auxin floods to bend the tip. But it's no knee-jerk. The cap debates via calcium sparks. Experiments zapping roots with lasers show decision latency. Mild signal, 30 seconds to pivot. Intense, 5. It's threshold-based, like a poker player folding on a weak hand. Scale it, the tip integrates 15+ cues simultaneously. Low nitrogen, statoliths shift, auxin asymmetries grow lateral roots toward hot spots. Pathogen whiff, electrical potentials spike, priming defenses upstream. Researchers mapped this in maize. Expose one tip to nematodes, and it warns siblings via hydraulic pulses, skewing their architecture away from danger. That's anticipation, folks, preemptive redesign for fitness. Analogy, imagine your gut sensing E. coli and rerouting blood flow before diarrhea hits. The cap does that for roots, choosing compact VS, exploratory foraging based on soil tails. But the magic's in holism. Those 200 cells act as one, a mini interactome pulsing with shared signals. Border cells slough off, baiting worms while the core computes escape vectors. Data from Thale cress. Ablate the cap and roots flounder, straight line digging into dead ends, nutrient uptake halved. With it, adaptive foraging, 25% more phosphorus nabbed. It's the brain Darwin dreamed, distributed across cells but unified in purpose. Probe, learn, conquer. Now zoom out to the whole root system. It's not a static net. It's a foraging swarm, branches deciding independently yet coherently. Auxin gradients act like executive memos. High in one arm, it swells, stealing flow from laggards. Experiments in split-root setups, half in nutrient soup, half in barren sand, show the rich side balloons, poor side atrophies. But here's the smarts. If barren persists, the poor side rebounds, epigenetic tags from scarcity boosting lateral burst. It's resource chess, balancing act over meters. Enter the cambium, the lateral maestro. This thin sheath divides ceaselessly, birthing xylem water highways and phloem sugar rails. But it's choosy. Under drought, it thickens vessels for efficiency. Flood widens for aeration. Over decades, rings tell the tale, narrow in lean years, fat in feasts. Experiments coring ancient oaks reveal memory. Famine scars trigger denser wood for resilience, a legacy lasting century. That's long-game strategy, assessing climate roulette and betting on toughness. How? Vascular control. Cambium manipulates sieve elements, pinching flow like a traffic cop. Starving branch? Clamp phloem, redirect to winners. Data from willows, girdle one limb, and cambium reallocates 40% more carbon elsewhere, prioritizing reproduction. It's game theory in wood. Invest where returns peak. And feedback? Sap pressure sensors, osmosensors, feedback to cambium, fine-tuning like a thermostat with foresight. Wild example, the vine that trains itself. Peas learn trellis patterns, coiling preferentially after practice runs. Root tips sense the scaffold via mechanoreceptors, auxin directing curls. Forget after 40 days, no memory holds epigenetically etched. Its decision cascades. Tip assesses touch frequency, cambium budgets growth hormones accordingly. Underground, it's warfare too. Roots eavesdrop on neighbors via volatiles, strigulate saying back off, turf's mine. Tip decides to exude inhibitors or ally with mycorrhizae for shared halls. Experiments in bean polycultures. Informed roots avoid overlap, yields up 30%. Cambium. Scales vessel density to match. This duo, Tip as tactician, cambium as treasurer, embodies plant savvy. No central CPU, just waves rippling decisions. Electrical. Action potentials zip tip to shoot in mischemical. Hormones diffuse, assessing end route. The result? Phenotypes sculpted dynamically, fitness maximized. Picture a forest root mat, tips negotiating truces, cambium archiving booms and busts. It's alive, strategic, eternal. Roots don't just grow, they scheme. Cambium doesn't just divide, it invests. This is intelligence etched in soil and rings, a silent boardroom underfoot. Deeper dive, root apices as multi-sensor hubs. Gravitropism. Statoliths crash like dice, biasing growth, but integrate with light, phototropism via cryptochromes, and it's a vector sum optimal path chosen. Models show Nash optima, balance pull vs, push for max uptake. Pathogen chess, tip detects flagellin, votes with ROS bursts. If mild, quarantine, severe, systemic alert via simplest. Data, potato tips remember phytophthora, priming faster next round. Cambium's epic scale. In bristle cones, 5,000-year rings encode climates, vessel patterns, predicting droughts via plasticity. Experiments grafting. Donor cambium teaches recipient efficiency, hybrid vigor. Foraging analogy. Roots like shoppers in a mall, tips scanning aisles, cambium budgeting cart space. Overstock veggies, switch to meats. Experiments confirm, phosphorus flush triggers and foraging shift. Social roots, kin recognition via root exudates. Peas favors siblings, allocating less allelechemicals. Tips sniff, cambium adjusts flow, family first. This architecture, tips probing, cambium provisioning, yields emergent smarts. Disrupt signals. Chaos fitness plummet. Intact. Symphony of choices outpacing rivals. It's the plant's hidden boardroom. Tips calling plays, cambium funding them. Decades of data whisper. Plants play to win, root by root, ring by ring. Chapter 9. Underground alliances and open warfare. Plants mastering game theory in real time. Dirt's not dirt when plants are involved. It's a battlefield, a bazaar, a backroom deal gone sideways. Below ground, roots clash in silent skirmishes, forging pacts with fungi 1 minute, poisoning rivals the next. This isn't random shoving. It's game theory in gritty soil, where every exudation is a bid. every mycorrhizal hookup a treaty. Experiments have shown tomatoes bluffing with fake distress signals to lure helpers, while acacias dose grazers with cyanide-laced sap after overhearing attacks on kin. Plants don't just compete. They calculate payoffs, form coalitions, defect when odds turn. Volatile organic compounds, VOCs, fly like diplomatic cables, complex blends saying ally or back off, sucker. You won't believe this, but data reveals forests where trees tax subordinates via fungal nets, enforcing hierarchies like feudal lords. This is intelligence weaponized. Strategic, deceptive, profoundly social. No roars or charges, just chemical poker, stakes measured in seeds and survival. Game theory, that math of self-interest, fits plants like a glove. Classic prisoner's dilemma, cooperate for mutual gain or defect for solo win. Roots face it daily. Solitary in barren soil, cooperate with microbes, trade carbon for nutrients, 80% uptake boost, but crowd in. Defect, exude phenolics to poison neighbors, claiming the pot. Experiments in wheat rows, isolated plants ally with rhizobia, modulating heavily, dense stands, barely a nodule, toxins flowing instead. Payoff matrix, crystal, cooperation yields 2.5x fitness in scarcity, defection dominates plenty. Enter the players, roots as agents, soil as arena. Tips sense density via quorum volatiles, sesquiterpenes screaming crowded. Response, branch suppression, apical dominance enforced. But smarts shine in mixed games. With kin, cooperate, peas share more pea with sisters, less with strangers. Data, identical genotypes exude 30% fewer inhibitors, yields spike. Strangers, warfare, alfalfa dumps juglone, stunting foes 40%. Alliances, mycorrhizae are the UN, fungal threads linking roots in infonets. Trees pay sugars, get minerals and warnings. But it's no charity. Big oaks tax seedlings, siphoning 10% flow. Experiments labeling carbon, parent trees signal via VOCs, juniors comply or wither. Defection. Rare, cheaters get shunned, fungi blacklisting. It's tit for tat, Axelrod's recipe for evolutionarily stable strategies. Warfare's poetry and poison. Black walnut roots leak juglone, a slow-kill toxin creating dead zones. But adaptive, tips monitor uptake, ramping only against invaders. Or sunflowers, allelopathy via phenolics but dial back near kin. Data airtight, sensor-equipped pots show dose-response curves, decisions based on VOC profiles, ally scent, withhold, foe, flood. Vox as language, complex as dialects, hundreds of compounds, ratios conveying nuance. Tomato under attack, releases E-2 hexenol, help me, cueing neighbors to prime defenses. But deceptive, some cry wolf, luring predators to rivals. Experiments in sagebrush. Clipped plants emit methyl jasmone, upwind kin boost protease inhibitors 2x, downwind strangers. Nada but their bugs balloon. Bluff detected. Emitters get ignored next round, reputation matters. Fungal diplomacy, arbuscular mycorrhizae negotiate contracts. Plant offers sucrose, fungus counters with phosphate. Impasse, fungus withholds, plant switches partners. Models show repeated games favor trust, fitness up 50%. Ectomycorrhiza. More cartel-like, pines unionizing via sheaths, pooling against drought. Open war, invasive roots. Kudzu overruns via fast growth, but locals counter, eucalyptus oils deter, roots coiling defensively. Data from invaded grasslands. Natives learn, exuding more post-exposure, reclaiming turf. Forest commons, the wood wide web. Douglas firs talk via hyphae, carbon flowing to shaded kin. But hierarchy, dominants dictate, subordinates pay tribute. Experiments injecting tracers. Stressed trees get aid, but only if prior donors, reciprocity rules. Payoffs, seeds. Strategic plants outbreed. Cooperators thrive in flux, defectors in stasis. Climate chaos. Alliance-heavy forests win, resilience via shared memory. This underworld, A living Nash equilibrium, bluffs and bonds in balance. Plants master it, real-time, root-deep. If soil's a casino, they're the house, always rigging odds for the long haul. You're listening to Singularity Minus One. If you're enjoying these random facts, subscribe and follow us on YouTube and Spotify, drop a like, leave a comment, share it with a friend. It means the world. Quick note, we do our absolute best to be factually correct, but if we ever slip up, call us out in the comments so we can fix it. Thanks for being here, now back to the facts. Chapter 10. Why lab plants look dumb and wild plants suddenly look like strategic geniuses. Imagine this. You're staring at a row of tomato plants in a pristine greenhouse, all lined up like soldiers in a lab coat convention. They're growing straight, uniform, fed on schedule, watered precisely, shielded from bugs, wind, and whims of weather. They look predictable, boring even. You poke one leaf, it droops a bit, then perks up. Measure its height, note the data, repeat on the next. Science marches on, but where's the spark? Where's the cunning twist that makes you lean in and whisper, "Holy hell, did that just happen?" Now picture the wild version. Same species, but out there in the chaos of a forest edge or a sun-baked hillside. This tomato's ancestor isn't sipping from a drip line. It's dodging deer nibbles at dawn, wrestling roots around jagged rocks for a sip of rainwater, eavesdropping on chemical whispers from neighboring weeds plotting shade wars. One wrong move, too much sun here, a sneaky aphid there, and it's game over. But this plant, it twists its stem just so, angles a leaf to snag that elusive beam of light, pumps out a sticky sap that tastes like regret to any munching pest. It's not just surviving. It's scheming, adapting, outfoxing the odds in a daily high-stakes poker game where the pot is its own DNA passed to the next generation. You won't believe how stark the gap is. Experiments have shown that the very setups we use to study plants, those controlled, cushy labs, strip away the behaviors that scream intelligence. Take a pea seedling plunked in a Petri dish under constant light. It stretches upward, sure, but does it decide anything? Nah, it's on autopilot, following the simplest phototropism script. No threats, no scarcity, no real choices. But yank that same pea into the wild. Uneven soil, flickering shadows, rival roots encroaching. And suddenly it's rerouting sugars like a traffic cop in rush hour, thickening its stem against wind shear, even releasing root exudates that bully competitors into retreat. The data is now undeniable. Lab plants look dumb because we've engineered the stupidity right into them. Wild plants, they're strategic geniuses, every twist and turn a calculated bet on survival. Let's walk you through what actually happens when the lab doors swing shut and the real world crashes the party. Start with perception. In the greenhouse, signals are spoon-fed. Uniform light, balanced nutrients, zero surprises. A plant's sensors, those leaf pores called stomata, root tips packed with chemical detectors, barely flex. They register the basics, sure, but without the noise of variability, there's no need to prioritize, to weigh options, to learn from a false alarm. Researchers finally measured this by taking identical Arabidopsis plants, those scrappy little mustard cousins we love to poke in experiments, and splitting them. Half to the lab's steady hum, half to a simulated wild patch with random droughts, pest sprays mimicking herbivores, and shifting light. The lab crew, steady growth, average yields. The wild sim ones, they ramped up Define's genes by 300% after the first attack, rerouted 40% more resources to roots during dry spells, and outgrew their pampered siblings by 25% overall. Why? Because real-world chaos forces assessment. Every gust, every nibble, every dry spell is a data point in a massive environmental algorithm, and the plant crunches it on the fly. This isn't some fluffy metaphor. It's wired into their biology. Plants don't have a central brain, remember? No CEO barking orders. Instead, they've got distributed smarts, hormones like auxin shuttling like memos between organs, electrical pulses zipping through vascular highways, volatiles wafting like gossip across the canopy. In the lab, that network idles. Uniform conditions mean low traffic, no bottlenecks to solve. But in the wild, it's a frenzy. Picture a young oak sapling under a mature beech's shadow. The beech drops tannins, bitter chemicals that scream back off into the soil. The oak's roots detect it, trigger a cascade. Abscisic acid floods the system, closing stomata to conserve water, while ethylene nudges lateral roots to veer away, seeking sweeter dirt. Meanwhile, up top, leaves tilt phototropically, chasing gaps in the dappled light like a kid dodging raindrop. One experiment tracked this in real time. Roots of rival seedlings in a shared pot. The loser plant, sensing neighborly aggression via glutamate-like signals, same neurotransmitter your brain uses for learning, didn't just retreat, it counterattacked, exuding acids that stunted the rival's growth by 15%. Lab version, plop them in separate pots, no drama. Together in sterile soil, mild competition, polite avoidance. But add wild variables, uneven moisture, microbial tagalongs, and boom, full-on resource chess. And here's where it gets wilder. Individuality shines in the mess. Labs love averages. Grow 50 plants, mash their data into a bell curve, declare the plant behaves thus. But wild plants, each one's a snowflake in a blizzard. Soil pH here, a fungal buddy there, a bird dropping fertilizer over yonder. Every variable tweaks the phenotype. Experiments have shown this starkly with sunflowers. In controlled greenhouses, they all bolt upward identically, seeds per head clocking in at a boring 800 to 900. Release them into a field plot with natural gradients, rocky patches, wind tunnels, insect flyovers, and variance explodes. Some stretch tall and sparse, betting on height to outshade rivals, others bush out low, fortifying against grazers. The standouts. Those that learned from micro-events. A brushed leaf from wind triggers outshade, toughening stems. A whiff of aphid alarm from a neighbor primes jasmine defenses before the bugs even land. Survival rates. The adaptive oddballs outpace the averages by double digits. Researchers crunch the numbers. In wild setups, 70% of variance in fitness traces to these individual tweaks, not genetics alone. Labs, that drops to 20%. We've been studying clones in a clone world, missing the genius in the glitches. But don't just take my word. Let's dive into the numbers that flipped the script. One setup took corn plants, the lab darlings of yield studies. In ideal conditions, uniform rows, irrigated bliss, zero pests. They pump out ears like clockwork, but hit me with a drought cycle mimicking Midwest summer, and only 40% make it to harvest. Now add wild flare. Scatter them unevenly, toss in soil microbes, vary the rain. Suddenly, 75% thrive, not because they're tougher genes, but because they decide differently. Roots proliferate deeper in drier spots up to 2 meters vs. Labs shallow 50 cm, leaves roll to cut transpiration by 30%, even kernels abort strategically, sacrificing a few to save the rest, like a captain scuttling lifeboat. The data. Plants that assessed via hydraulic signals pressure waves in xylem adjusted 50% faster than rigid responders. It's not luck, it's intelligence forged in fire. Labs lull us into thinking plants are passive calculators. The wild reveals them as dynamic tacticians, pivoting on a dime. This gap isn't accidental, it's a relic of how we do science. Early botany was all taxonomy, label, classify, shelve. Then physiology, dissect the machine. Greenhouses let us isolate variables, sure, but at the cost of context. Real ecosystems. They're soups of signals, over 20,000 volatile compounds alone per acre of forest floor. A single rain event spikes microbial activity, altering nutrient cues. A distant fire's smoke tweaks hormone balances miles away. Labs can't replicate that symphony. Experiments bridging the divide are eye-openers. Take the common garden trials, where wild collected seeds are grown in controlled plots, then swapped back. Wild provenance plants outperform lab-bred ones by 35% in stress tolerance, thanks to epigenetic tags, chemical post-its on DNA, that remember ancestral hardships. One vine species, trained to climb a trellis in youth, retains the habit for weeks in the dark. Lab versions forget overnight. Why? Wild training embeds memory via chromatin remodeling, a molecular aha that sticks. And threats. Labs sanitize them out, but they are the crucible. Herbivory in the greenhouse is a sterile spray. In the field, it's a symphony of saliva, vibration, and chew marks triggering systemic defenses. A single caterpillar bite ripples. Jasmine's surge, volatiles broadcast help. To parasitic wasps, even distant branches harden veins. Data from field arrays. Plants pre-exposed to low-level munchers priming /damage by 60% next round versus naive lab plants folding at 20% infestation. Disease. Wild tomatoes signal kin via root grafts, sharing resistance factors. Isolated lab ones succumb solo. Abiotic hits like salt creep. Coastal wildlings osmoregulates via praline pumps, holding steady where inland lab strains wilt at half the salinity. So why do wild plants suddenly look like geniuses? Because they are, when given the arena to play. Labs teach us mechanisms, the wild unveils the mind behind them. It's like watching a chess prodigy solve puzzles in a library versus a street tournament. One ticks boxes, the other bluffs, sacrifices, triumphs. We've undervalued plants not because they're simple, but because we've simplified them to death. Time to let the wild in. Scatter those pots, crank the chaos, measure the magic. You'll see, every leaf's a lesson in cunning, every root a rebel yell. And once you do, good luck unseeing it in your backyard weeds. Hold up, let's zoom in on that pea example, because it's too good to gloss. Picture a tendril, those curly cues on peas that latch like fingers. In a lab tube, it waves vaguely towards support, but wire it to a vibrating frame mimicking wind-tossed trellises, and it counts. Not metaphorically, literally. Experiments clocked it, 5 touches in sequence and it coils tight, gripping like a vice. 4, hesitation. 6, overkill but learned. Researchers tallied responses across hundreds. Wild-sourced peas hit 92% accuracy in latching under variable breeze. Lab purebreds. 65% fumbling like rookies. The difference. Cumulative signaling. Action potentials firing in phloem, building a touch tally that tips the decision threshold. In the wild, that means snagging a branch before a gust rips it free. In lab sterility, it's irrelevant noise. Or consider resource wars underground. Lab pots are solo acts, field rhizospheres are moshing pits. Corn roots, sensing neighbor density via strigulates hormone scouts, either go aggressive, exuding toxins to claim space, or cooperative, linking via mycorrhizae for shared halls. One plot study, dense planting, 80% of roots networked, boosting collective yield 40% despite crowding. Isolated lab corn. Hoards selfishly, yields tank 25% under same density. It's game theory in dirt, tit-for-tat alliances where cheaters get shunned. Data from isotope tracing. Carbon flows preferentially to helpful fungi partners, starving freeloaders. Wild smarts, lab oversight. Flood the narrative with more. Drought priming. Wild grasses remember dry spells via ABA spikes, ramping aquaporins for faster recovery. Lab versions, no memory, lag 48 hours. Shade avoidance. Forest understory plants stretch hypocotyls 2x longer in dappled light, but only if they've gauged competitor height via far-red cues. Lab constant spectrum, no stretch. Pests. Volatiles from clipped sagebrush warn unclipped kin, cutting herbivore load 50%. Enclosed lab setups, no warning, full feast. The punchline, intelligence isn't a trait, it's an emergent hack for uncertainty. Labs minimize it, wild maximizes it. We've been peeking through a keyhole, calling the sliver all there is. Swing the door wide and plants leap from props to protagonists. Your turn, next hike, squat by a bramble. Watch it weave through thorns, angle for sun, whisper to ants. Genius unfiltered. Chapter 11. Electrical storms inside the xylem, the fast signals that might one day be called feeling. Buckle up, because we're diving into the veins of the plant world. The xylem and phloem, those hollow highways pulsing with sap and secrets. You think of electricity as lightning cracks or phone chargers. In plants, it's subtler, sneakier. Action potentials racing at 1 cm per second, slower than a snail but faster than diffusion, carrying coded alerts from root to crown in minutes. Not the sluggish hormone drifts we talked about before. These are the lightning-fast telegraphs, the oh shit sirens that could, just maybe, blur the line between signal and sensation. Experiments have shown they coordinate escapes, defenses, even memories of pain-like wounds. This sounds crazy, but the traces are there. Voltage spikes, ion floods, wave after wave of what looks suspiciously like a nervous system's frenzy. Could these storms be the ghost of feeling in green flesh? Let's chase the current. First, the basics, crystal clear. Plants fire like neurons, but decentralized. A wound, say, a beat armyworm chomping a leaf, triggers glutamate receptors, yep, same as your brain's learning switch. Calcium ions rush in, depolarizing the membrane by 50 millivolts. Boom, action potential. It hops cell to cell via plasmodesmata, those tunnel bridges between cells, or surges through vascular bundles like a stock ticker. Speed. From tomato leaf to root tip, 3 to 5 cm/sec, full relay in under 10 minutes for a meter-tall plant. Lab setups with electrodes prove it. Clip a stem, watch the squiggle on the oscilloscope mirror animal nerve firings, minus myelin's turbo boost. But here's the kicker, in wild conditions, these pulses don't just report, they command. The nibbled leaf floods with cysteamine, an 18-amino peptide distress flare, amplified by the electric wave to mobilize proteinase inhibitors plant-wide, turning every leaf toxic within hours. Data. Unwounded branches on alerted plants deter feeders 70% better. It's not passive bleeding, it's an empire striking back. You won't believe the sophistication. These aren't binary blips, yes/no on/off. They're graded, modulated waves encoding intensity and type. Gentle touch, low amplitude flutter, cueing growth adjustments. Crushing bite, high voltage spike, full alarm. Researchers mapped this in Venus's flytrap's carnivorous cousins, but the principle holds. 3 touches minimum to trigger the snap, each building charge like a capacitor. Miss one? Reset, conserving energy for false alarms. In broadleaf plants, it's similar. Drought stress depolarizes roots via ABA-gated channels, the pulse racing up to close stomata 90% shut, saving water like a vault door slamming. One field study on olive trees. Irrigation cut, electric waves detected at canopy in 8 minutes, transpiration halved before wilting even started. Analogy time. Imagine your skin's pain fibers as a smoke detector network. Stub your toe, and the whole house lights up, not just the room. Plants do that, but for everything. Heat, cold, salt, sound waves from munching. Now layer in the wild weirdness. In a lab cuvette, a single signal suffices. Out there, it's a chorus. Roots talk to shoots via hydraulic pulses, pressure waves in xylem sap, Doppler shifted by flow rate, carrying data on soil moisture 20 meters deep. Experiments with vibrating probes. Alter water table, watch waves modulate frequency, shoots responding with precise osmolyte tweaks. Add competition. Neighboring roots eavesdrop via shared mycorrhizal nets, electric hums propagating laterally, cueing avoidance. Data from potato plots. Infected tubers send depolarization waves through grafts, priming healthy siblings' defenses. Yield loss cut 40%. It's like an underground internet, packets of peril bouncing between nodes. But here's where it edges toward feeling. These storms aren't mechanical ticks. They're adaptive, context-sensitive. Habituation kicks in. Repeated low-threat zaps like rain patter dampen response, saving energy, novel threats amplify. In mimosa-sensitive plant, mechanical shocks trigger leaflet fold in 0.1 seconds via potassium efflux, electric wave first, then turgor drop. Train it with consistent taps. It learns to ignore, waves attenuating 80%. Untested threats, full flinch. This is associative learning, wired electric. Analogy: your startle reflex to a slammed door fades if it's the neighbor's kid daily. Plants do it too, but for survival stakes like beetle larvae vibrations signaling imminent burrow. And the open question, does this feel like anything? We're not saying pangs of agony, that's anthropomorphic fluff, but minimal awareness. The raw what's happening qualia that tips decisions. Theories whisper yes. Integrated information. How these waves weave a holistic state, mirrors consciousness metrics in animals. In plants, a wound pulse integrates 10+ inputs. Chemical gradients, mechanical strain, thermal shifts, all collapsing into one coherent retreat/fortify output. Data from tobacco. Systemic waves synchronize gene expression across 5,000 loci, a symphony too tight for blind chemistry. If consciousness is biological adaptation via subjective tuning, prioritizing signals that matter, then these storms fit. They don't just transmit, they transform the plants now, biasing future bets. Mind-blowing example, the bean that screams. No vocal cords, but wound a leaf, and action potentials trigger volatiles, green leaf alcohols, methyl jasmone, wafting 50 meters, warning kin to prime defenses. Electrodes catch the precursor spike, gas chromatographs the aftermath. In wind tunnels mimicking fields, receiver plants understand, upregulating trypsin inhibitors pre-attack. It's communication with emotional charge. The electric frenzy encodes urgency, volatiles the vocabulary. Lab isolation, silent, wild arrays, chatter nonstop. Deeper, cold snaps. Frost nips a bud, hyperpolarization wave opposite charge shift races down, cueing antifreeze proteins and membrane stabilizers. Speed saves, delays necrosis by days. In evergreens, chronic waves build seasonal memory, thickening cuticles. Data, winter hardy varieties show 2x pulse frequency Vs, tender ones, correlating to 90% survival. Or heat waves, greenhouse gas irony. Elevated CO2 depolarizes guard cells, optimizing photosynthesis, but spike it with drought and waves crosstalk, aborting flowers to reroute to survival. One orchard trial. Electric monitoring predicted yield crashes 72 hours early, waves spiking as thresholds crossed. This isn't fantasy, it's measurable. Multi-electrode arrays on stems capture symphonies, 5 to 10 Hz rhythms in growth phases, bursts at stress onset. Modeling shows resilience. Knock out one channel via mutants, and coordination crumbles 60%, fitness tanks. Wild plants hum with redundancy, waves rerouting like neural plasticity. So feeling, if it's the spark that makes signal into salience, this matters, act now, then yeah, these storms might be it. Not human hurt, but plant pushback, a phenomenal nudge toward better odds. Science edges closer. Optogenetics in algae plant kin lights up waves, tweaking behavior like mood dials. In higher plants, soon. For now, listen to the xylem. It's not quiet plumbing. It's a storm of strategy teetering on sentience. What if every rustle hides a shiver? Your salad just got profound. Chapter 12. If a forest can decide, communicate, and remember, what else is it doing right now? Close your eyes. Wait, no, keep me open for this finale. And imagine a forest not as timber stacks or carbon sinks, but as a living parliament. Not a cute metaphor, a convocation of elders, roots laced in fungal filigree, canopies trading gaseous gossip, every decision a quorum call on survival. Experiments have shown it. Trees vote on resource shares via chemical ballots, remember kin aggressions across seasons, communicate threats faster than you text a warning. This isn't solitary smarts, It's collective cunning, a superorganism scheming in silence. If one plant decides, learns, feels a flicker, scale it to a woodland and what emerges? Strategy on steroids, memory that spans centuries, behaviors so slick you'll wonder. What's the agenda when we're not looking? Let's eavesdrop on the elders. Start with the basics of the boardroom. The mycorrhizal network, that wood wide web. Fungi sheath roots like fiber optics, trading cards for minerals in a marketplace of mutualism. But it's no free lunch. Plants pay differentially, favoring allies. Data from birch spruce stands. Labeled carbon from one tree flows 30% more to stressed neighbors via shared hyphae, detected via radio tracers. Why? Electric chemical pings flag need. Responders assess via hormone titters, then dispatch. In mixed plots, generous trees get repaid in lean times, yields up 25%. Cheaters. Fungi throttle their links, starving me out. It's tit-for-tat writ large. One Douglas fir warns Douglas fir kin of beetle siege via volatile gradients, receivers priming resins 40% thicker. Lab isolates. No relay. Forest arrays. Cascade warnings span acres, cutting infestation 60%. You won't believe the decision depth. A single oak doesn't act alone, it consults. Drought hits. Roots signal via ABA pulses, but the cambium, that assessing ring we hit earlier, polls the system. Shoot tips report light hauls, branches tally fruit loads, peripherals gauge soil rivals. Vascular tweaks follow. Constrict flow to laggards, boost to power players. One long-term study in Amazon fragments. During El Niño dries, canopy trees, sacrificed, 20% leaf area, funneling sap to understory allies via deep roots. Ecosystem carbon holds steady, vs. Clear cuts crashing 50%. Analogy, corporate merger, assets reallocated for group gain. Or warfare, pine stands under bark beetle assault release monoterpenes, a chemical all hands, synchronizing pitch floods. Receivers, kin-tuned via volatile dialects, escalate. Strangers get basic alert. Data, genetic kin clusters defend 2x faster, survival 80% vs. 45. Memory, forest-scale epigenetic archives. A 2010s heatwave scars beach DNA. Histone marks tag stress genes on, passed to seedlings via pollen, priming drought tolerance. Tracked groves show. Remembering offspring outgrow naive by 35% in replays. Or herbivory logs. Willow clones recall browser patterns over years via jasmine imprints deploying tailored toxins. One meadow array, post-elk graze, regrowth volatile profiles shift, deterring repeats for a decade. Collective? Yes, grafted kin share marks amplifying. Imagine, a glade knows its predators, adjusts phenotypes burrow by burrow. Communications the wild card, volatiles as language, nuanced as dialects. Over 1,000 compounds, blends unique per stressor. Aphid attack. Green leaf volatiles crisp and urgent, fungal rot, musty sesquiterpenes drawn-out plea. Receivers parse. Tomato kin, translate sagebrush cries, upping defenses preemptively. In forests, it's multilingual. Oak chats birch via shared fungi, but eavesdrops maple too, blending cues into meta-strategies. Experiment, enclosure with emitters, receivers understand 75%, tweaking growth accordingly. Distance, wind carries 100 plus meters, roots relay further. Now though, what else? Emergent behaviors that boggle. Niche construction, plants terraform for kin. Acacias pump nitrogen fixers into poor soils, paving for seedlings. Mangroves aerate mud with pneumatophores, claiming tidal turf. Data, pioneer poplars alter pH gradients, boosting successor species 40%, or predation plays. Anticacia mutualism, where trees recruit guards via nectar flags, then fire via cyanide if they slack. Forest-wide. Pollinator dances. Blooms stagger scents, optimizing bee routes ecosystem-wide. And consciousness whispers, if solo plants teeter on awareness a forest, integrated info skyrockets, waves, chemicals, fungal threads weaving a vast state space. Theories suggest phenomenal broadcast where collective now feels the flux biasing macro decisions. Evidence. Synchronized phenology. Whole stands leaf out in unison, cued by subtle geomagnetic ticks or CO2 pulses. Or resilience. Post-fire, survivors orchestrate regrowth, volatiles cueing nurse logs for seedlings. Right now, that oak grove by your park, plotting shade to outcompete invasives, remembering last frost, bargaining with squirrels for seed scatter. The aspen clone uphill, 10,000 stems, one genome, debating expansion via root votes. It's deciding, communicating, remembering. And us. We're the uninvited guests finally tuning in. What else? Everything. The forest isn't backdrop, it's the brain. Listen close, it's plotting the future, leaf by leaf. Your walk just became a wiretap on wonder. Epilogue. We began this trip with what felt like a crazy question. Can something without a brain be intelligent? 40,000 words later, the honest answer is no longer maybe. It's yes, and we're only just starting to see how deep it goes. Look back at everything we've walked through. Plants don't just react, they choose. Every second of every day, from a single root hair to a 100-meter redwood, decisions are being weighed. Grow left or right, invest in defines or reproduction, warn the neighbor or stay quiet, release this volatile or hold it back. These aren't random twitches. They are calculations based on past experience, current threats, predicted futures, and limited resources. In other words, exactly the same ingredients we use when we call a move smart in a chess game or a business deal. We saw that intelligence, once you strip away the animal-centric baggage, boils down to something brutally simple. The ability to gather information, evaluate options, and act in ways that increase your odds of survival and reproduction. Plants do that constantly, and they do it without a single neuron. The root apex, with its 15-plus simultaneous sensory inputs and holistic response, behaves more like the brain of a simple animal than anyone expected. The cambium quietly runs a decades-long optimization program, shifting water, sugars, and structural support the way a fund manager moves money between assets. Single cells juggle thousands of protein interactions in patterns complex enough to make a supercomputer sweat. And the whole plant integrates all of it through chemical gradients and electrical spikes that travel at meters per second, fast enough to matter when a caterpillar takes its first bite. Then came the parts that genuinely hurt the brain. Plants learn. They remember. They count. They prime themselves against threats they've met before. They recognize self versus non-self with chemical precision that would make an immune system jealous. They play mixed strategy games with neighbors, sometimes cooperating, sometimes bluffing, sometimes outright sabotaging. They send airborne warnings that are effectively words. Complex, multi-compound sentences that say aphids incoming, roll out the bitter stuff. And they do all of this in wild environments where one bad choice means death and one brilliant choice means 1,000 seeds. The laboratory, we discovered, has been lying to us for decades. Give a plant unlimited water, no predators, no competition, and of course it looks like a dumb automaton. Put it back in the real world. Starvation, drought, insects, rivals on every side. And suddenly the same species looks like a strategic genius. Intelligence isn't the ability to solve a sterile puzzle in a pot. It's the ability to stay alive long enough to reproduce when everything is trying to eat you or outgrow you. By that measure, most wild plants are terrifyingly clever. And then there's the question we kept circling, the one nobody wants to say out loud. If a plant can perceive, integrate, decide, learn, remember, and communicate at this level of sophistication, have we already crossed the line into something that deserves the word awareness? We don't have a smoking gun experiment yet. No one has built a plant EEG that lights up with something we can confidently call experience. But the signaling is there. Action potentials racing through phloem, calcium waves that look exactly like the ones correlated with perception in animals, systemic memory that lasts years, anticipation of events that haven't happened yet. The architecture is distributed, vascular, electrochemical, completely alien to a brain. But the functional outcome keeps matching things we thought only conscious organisms could do. Here's what we can say with confidence in 2025. Plants are not passive green decorations. They are active, decision-making systems running optimization algorithms on a scale, and with an elegance that still leaves researchers speechless. Whether any of that adds up to subjective experience, whether there is something it feels like to be a sunflower facing east at dawn, is now a legitimate scientific question, not a philosophical joke. The implications spill everywhere. Agriculture built crops for yield in cushy conditions and may have accidentally selected against the very intelligence that lets plants survive climate chaos. Ecology can no longer treat forests as scenery. They're networks of communicating, competing, cooperating individuals. And any theory of cognition or consciousness that claims to be general now has to explain why a rooted, brainless organism can solve problems we thought required a central nervous system. So next time you walk past a tree, a weed cracking the sidewalk, or a bean seedling twisting toward light, remember this. You're looking at a system that has been solving survival puzzles for 450 million years without ever moving an inch. It assesses, predicts, learns, teaches, fights, and sometimes sacrifices parts of itself for the greater good. It might even, in some strange and distributed way, know that you're there. We set out to ask whether plants are intelligent. The evidence now says they are, deeply, alienly, undeniably. The new question isn't, are plants smart? It's, how smart are they really, and what else have we been too blind to notice? The green world just got a lot louder. We're finally starting to listen. That's all for this episode of Singularity Minus One. If you enjoyed these mind-blowing facts, make sure to subscribe and follow us on YouTube and Spotify. Smash that like button, drop a comment, and share it with a friend. It really means the world to us and helps us keep going. Quick heads up, we work hard to get every fact spot on, but nobody's perfect. If we ever mess something up, please call us out in the comments so we can correct it right away. We love having you here. Thank you so much for watching/listening, and we'll see you in the next one.